Literacy, language, our basic need for communication. It's something we don't really think about until, well, we can't do it. And it impacts our education, our jobs, our future. There are organizations like the Literacy Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania that are working to help bridge that gap and help people be able to communicate and get on with their futures. So what is the challenge and what are the solutions? Kristen Walsh of the Literacy Center in Allentown is going to be joining us to break down those questions and more. That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm Sam Chen. Literacy, communications, it's not something that we normally think about, but for many it's a roadblock to their future, to jobs, to careers, to education. So what are we going to do about it? Kristen Walsh is the Director of Development at the Literacy Center here in the Lehigh Valley region of Pennsylvania, and she joins us tonight. Kristen, welcome to Face the Issues.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Kristen, before we get started, before we get into the issue, I should say, let's talk a little bit about the Literacy Center. How long have you guys been around and where do you serve?
So the Literacy Center was formed in 1977. So we've been around now for 44 years. We primarily serve the Allentown area, including the Lehigh Valley, and we have a lot of students actually in further reaching areas in Pennsylvania and occasionally a little bit further. So I think we do have a student right now in Florida. Okay,
we will call Florida the greater Lehigh Valley area moving forward.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Valley. Let's talk about the need here. I mean, literacy, statistically, 21% of American adults are illiterate. That's 43 million people total. 13% of adults in Pennsylvania are illiterate. Now, that's some of the work that you guys do, but you guys do more than that. So what is the work that you guys do? And what are you seeing as the main issue that we're having to face?
So I think the primary issue that we're facing and combating at the Literacy Center is employment. So there are so many barriers to employment. And the three main ones that we focus on are English as a second language, GED or high school equivalency, and workforce development, so work training. And so while there's a handful of our students who are considered illiterate, they cannot read or write, the majority of our students can't read or write in English. So it's just slightly different.
Sure. And the interesting is it ends up in the same problem, to your point. I mean, if you could read or write in another language, but you're looking for a job here in the States, that could prove to be an issue, not unlike somebody who is illiterate and does not have the ability to read or write. And to your point, if you're looking for work and you're trying to get into the workforce to take care of your family, that would present as an issue. I want to ask you about these ESL needs. You listed that right off the top as probably the biggest one. Is there a predominant language that they're coming from? There's a large Latino population in the Allentown area that hails from Puerto Rico, the Dominican, and elsewhere. There's a heavy Asian population, an increasing Syrian population in the area. Is there a specific language that you are mostly working with, or is it across the board?
You've actually just named all three. So those are our three largest. I would say just over 60% of our students this year identify as Hispanic or Latino. And we do have that just like you said, that rising Syrian population. So we have a lot of Arabic speaking students as well. And so you can imagine the classes are not structured where you have, these are where the Spanish speaking students are going. And this is where the Arabic speaking students are going. They're all in the same class. So it's fascinating to kind of see all of these cultures melding and all of these languages melding, and they're all kind of focusing on the same goal of learning English.
What would you say the biggest reason is for these people to come to you? I mean, learning English, sure, especially with a lot of immigrant families, that's a big priority that they place when they get here, they place on their children. But what would you say the driving factor is for people who come to your center? What is driving them to be there?
What we're seeing is mostly employment. When you kind of look at, I recently saw a statistic that those who can speak English earn up to 40% more than those who struggle with it. So there's a massive opportunity to be earning more for your family and to support their welfare. And then secondarily, it's as simple as communication. Imagine needing to take a bus to the library. You have no idea how to even find the bus, let alone get to the bus. And then do you need to buy a ticket on the bus? Do you need to go to a ticket stand? It's very difficult if you kind of think about it. If you've ever traveled abroad and you don't know the language, you're lucky if they know English. But think of it as that way. And that's how these individuals, that's what they're facing.
How much of it is, and this may or may not be a fair question, but how much of this is also cultural? Is there places where if they are immigrants or families of immigrants that there's often cultural differences that may impact they're again trying to get a public transportation or trying to get a job that may impact it in addition to the language barrier?
Maybe a little bit. I don't see too much. With the students that I've had conversations with, they're very familiar already, it seems, with American culture. One of the students I spoke to recently, he said he was teaching himself English by listening to American music, and watching American television. So he was so excited when he saw some kind of coffee shop and said, "Oh, that was like the Friends TV show." So that really happens, So I think for the majority of these students, this is not an unusual kind of concept for them. But at the Literacy Center, we do try to promote those cultural traditions. We have, when we're in person, we're having potluck dinners where everybody brings a dish from their home country. And we're always celebrating those traditions and the different cultures that are there. That's kind of actually my favorite part of the job, is learning about the home countries of our students. That's
really neat. And to your point, sometimes I joke that the greatest American export is our culture, often through our media, right? And so
exactly. You don't know what's getting picked up until you hear about it.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Kristen, I want to ask you about the why. Is there a place where there's a disconnect? I mean, are we dropping the ball somewhere, and that this need is so vast, or is it just that there are more and more people coming? I mean, is there, there's some of the issues that we face is because simply that there's been a need that's increased. And other issues that we face is that we've dropped the ball somewhere along the line that has caused the issue that we need to address. What is the situation here?
I think, the majority of our students, so all of our students are adults. Mm-hmm. And a very large portion of our students have children within the Allentown School District. And it's very interesting because the children speak English very well. And it's the parents that are now struggling. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know that it's necessarily that we've dropped the ball. I wish there were more places like the Literacy Center to offer these services to students. There are businesses who fully believe in providing these classes to their employees to the point where they allow us to form a class in their break room, over a lunch hour or after the shift is done. So I don't know that it's necessarily that we've dropped a ball, but I will say I think there's a misconception about people who cannot speak English, mm-hmm. that it's their fault, mm-hmm. And I don't think it's really that kind of situation. These are individuals who they're not they're doing all they can to learn English, and that should be admired.
And to your point, English is one of the toughest languages to learn, and one of the trickiest. It's those of us who were born here. Most of us didn't walk away with A's in English as it is, and so it's certainly a tricky language. I want to close this segment asking you about the need. Why is this, in your mind, so important? I mean, what gets you up every day to want to do this? This is obviously important work when we talk about the need for people to be able to communicate. But where do you see your work and the center's work fitting into the greater needs in the Lehigh Valley?
I think, you can talk about the entire community as a whole. An educated workforce will lead to economic gains in the region. But, what keeps me up at night and what gets me up in the morning is knowing that we're seriously impacting families on a very direct basis. These individuals are working so hard. They're so gracious. They're so dedicated. We have graduation coming up in June. And so, that's our annual celebration of what they've accomplished. And to hear the stories of all of these different individuals and the impact that this education has made, no one should have to sacrifice for an education. It's one of the most fundamental pieces that you can have as a person. And so to provide that and to provide in turn for their families and see that grow as they go on is incredible. That's the best part about the whole thing.
Yeah, and to your point, as the communities rise, it catches all of us in that wave.
Exactly.
Kristen, thank you for that breakdown. Don't go away. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the programs that your organization has put together towards solving some of these issues that we face. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. I'm with Kristen Walsh, who is the Director of Development for the Literacy Center in the Allentown, Pennsylvania region. Kristen, thank you again for being with us. I want to shift now to a conversation on solutions. We have problems. Those are clearly identifiable. There are issues that we have to confront. But the difficult work is coming up with those solutions. And your organization, the Literacy Center, offers a number of different programs. I want to start by asking you if you could just introduce the center a little bit. You talked about when you were founded, how long they've been around. And when you closed, you talked about things like graduation. So how does the center operate? But how many students do you have? What is graduation like? Is this like a structured school year kind of thing? Or what is that system look like for you guys?
Yeah, so traditionally it rolls on a school year. So we'll have a summer session coming up here soon, and then that will kick into the fall. So our registration opened in the beginning of May, and the students will start signing up. And starting in June and July, we'll have those summer sessions to kick things off, and then in the fall, they'll start their school year session, and in June next year they'll graduate. So, ideally, or I shouldn't say ideally, but typically, it takes a student 7 years to get through our ESL program. For our GED program, it can take a student as little as 18 weeks. Mm-hmm. So it kind of differs depending on the program. And it also differs on the student and what they come knowing already when they show up at the Literacy Center.
So this is a long-term commitment either way. These are people who need to be serious about wanting to learn this and serious about using these tools. I'm going to ask you about your ESL program. Again, you said that's the biggest program that you guys have. Is the goal with the ESL program fluency? Is the hope that they would all graduate being fluent in English and able to converse and write and so forth? Absolutely.
Speaking, reading, writing, and listening. So they're tested on all four of those pieces. All of the curriculum is focused around those four. And yes, the idea is that they leave the center being fluent in English. And just as a kind of a testament to that, I think at this point it might be just over half of our staff are students. And the majority of them, the majority of those in our staff are ESL learners. So they're English as a second language learner. So and they come out of these programs, and I just am so amazed because just like you mentioned earlier, English is hard. So it's such an accomplishment. I'm getting a little misty-eyed because I'm thinking about my my coworkers and how far they've come and the dedication they put into this.
Yeah. Some of the other things that your organization offers, I mean, you talked about the GED program, and you said that's one of the largest 3 programs that you guys do. So you have something called the Young Empowered Students program that specifically works with those who have dropped out of high school. You also have tutoring and college counseling. Can you talk a little bit about this program? It looks like it's targeted for people who have dropped out of high school, hence the GED program. Some of it's trying to get them into jobs, some of it's trying to get them into colleges. What does that look like? What's the goal of that program?
So the GED program is fascinating, actually. You have students who did drop out of high school, but you also have students who didn't attend a high school in America. So now they have to get their GED if anyone's ever looked at a job application, almost every single job requires you to have a high school diploma. And so we've had students who've come to us to learn English and also need to get their GED because American companies won't accept even the fact that they have a master's degree in their country. They need a GED. So it's interesting, the students who are in there. For the different focuses, we're trying to break down those barriers that students are facing. We have study skills. So students who come into our GED program probably have been out of school for a long time. A lot has changed in even 10 years. So this provides students with the opportunity to get comfortable in a classroom, learn what they need to do to be successful in the program, and then our instructors are very dedicated to their success. So they go through a 9-week math program, and then they go through a 9-week language arts and social studies program. And at that conclusion, theoretically, they're ready to take all 4 exams, including science, and pass. And if they need any additional help, like you mentioned, we have tutoring available for those students. We have college access counseling. So, you get your high school diploma or you get your GED and you want to go on to college. And we do have a few students who do have that goal. And so, every student is an individual in our mind, and we do everything we can to ensure that individual is successful with all of the goals that they've set for themselves.
One of the things you just mentioned, Kristen, is the idea that jobs have changed and school has changed. What's been around 10 years ago isn't around today per se. I remember being at a high school graduation some 20 years ago, and the speaker was the late Dr. Herman Corradetti, who was the principal of Emmaus High School for years, president of Parkland School Board. Many of our viewers know that name well. And I distinctly remember him saying to the high school graduates, the jobs that you will hold 10 years from now, many of them have not yet been created. That even the concept of that job is not yet around, right? And we just see the change in just social media, right? When you and I were, I'm probably a little bit older than you are, but when you and I were growing up, our toughest decision was which 8 friends went in our MySpace profile. And now we're being told we're old if we have a Facebook, right? So This is the forever changing. One of the things that your organization works on is workforce development and teaching people about these changes, but how to adapt to them, getting them ready for the skills that they're going to need in that workforce. And one of the recent challenges, of course, is working from home. And I know you guys do have a work from home training program. Talk to me about this workforce development idea. What are the challenges in it that are facing your students, and what are you doing to help them get through it?
Yeah, so this is actually, I think this is the program I get most excited about. Every time I talk to anybody about the Literacy Center, I want to tell them about the Workforce Development Program. So it's relatively new. I think it's coming up to about maybe the 3rd year that we've had it. And it's primarily focused on helping students find and secure employment and also improve their employment. So like a really great student that we had who graduated last year. She worked in retail for decades. She knew her job. She was great in her job, and then her job was no more. She was laid off, and she found herself now in in a job market that she knew nothing about. She hadn't applied for jobs in 30 years. She didn't know anything about the new technologies that were out there. She only knew the system that she worked with in her retail job. So she came to the Literacy Center and took our administrative professional training program, which focuses on getting individuals prepared to work in an office setting, prepared to work in receptionist roles, things like that. She mastered her typing. She mastered those soft skills that you need to interact professionally and grow your network. And I think within a few weeks of graduating out of the program, she secured a fabulous full-time job with full benefits. And, you know, that's just one story, but there's multitudes of stories where that goes. The workforce development program is very much an all-encompassing path. So our students can go to a workshop and learn about computer skills, basic computer skills. They can then move on to our work from home training program. I did that. I highly recommend it for everybody. It's a free program. Why not? But it's that program totally changed my outlook working from home last summer. And I was coming to a point where I was getting that that mental wellness was not a primary focus for me. And after that class, I was able to kind of step back and evaluate the situation, be more effective at my job, and find a lot of happiness working from home. And then you come into the administrative professional training program, which is specifically focused on securing employment for the graduates. That is a goal that they identified for the program. And thus far, we've been very successful, even in the pandemic, getting these graduates into jobs that are meaningful for them and their families.
Wow, that's incredible. And that's especially a challenge given, anytime that we're talking about working and jobs, that's always presents a challenge, but certainly with the way things have gone around in the world. Let me ask you this as we close out the segment. How can people volunteer with the center or give to the center? What support do you need, and how can people be there to support the work that you guys do?
That's a great question. So we have a lot of volunteer opportunities. We have all of our classes right now are online. So if somebody is willing and wanting to volunteer with us, you can volunteer as an instructor within our classes. You can volunteer as a tutor. We have classroom aides. That's the biggest one we need. So imagine a class of 30 students all on the Hollywood squares of your Zoom screen, and you only have one instructor. It's pretty difficult. So we do need volunteers to assist in those capacities. And then giving financially. So beyond giving of your time as a volunteer, giving financially to the organization, as we kind of been talking about, it's making direct impacts on these individuals, on their lives, on their families, on the community. And so our organization provides all of these classes at no cost to the student. And that's one of the things we hear from them so often is, I didn't think, I could afford to do this. And that's what was holding me back. Or we provide support services to help individuals find childcare or healthcare or whatever it is that they need. So, we're not just focused on providing these classes. We're also focused on ensuring that the students are successful in it all. So, and then lastly, just letting people know we exist. If you have a neighbor who maybe moved to the United States recently and is struggling a little bit with their English, let them know we're here. We're here for them. We want them to come see us. We want them to join our classes. They will be a very welcome addition.
And this show will certainly help do that as well. And so, again, check out the website. Kristen, thank you for your time. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. Kristen, again, thank you for your time and for joining us and for the work that you and your organization does. And again, to our viewers, if you're interested in volunteering or supporting, the website is theliteracycenter-lv.org. You can check them out. Kristen, I want to ask you something, close out our show here today, something personal. You have been with the Literacy Center and you're doing all this work to help, as you mentioned earlier, help these individuals and their families. What is your why? I think a lot of times we talk about the what we do in life and we define ourselves by the work that we do. And I always have felt that to be a little bit backwards. I think that our identities drive the success of the work that we do. And so what is your why? What gets you up in the morning and what makes you want to be at the place that you are?
I honestly think it's giving back to the community that we live in and enjoy. From a really young age, my grandmother introduced volunteering to me. She was very active in the church. She was very active in our local library. She was also very active with Meals on Wheels. And so every Wednesday she did a Meals on Wheels run. And I knew that. And so I would actually fake sick. Don't tell anybody at Sauk Valley, but I would fake sick on Wednesdays so that I could join her on Meals on Wheels runs. So I really enjoyed it. And school just got in the way of my volunteering. But yeah, so she taught me from a really young age that it's important to give back to your community, support it in any way you can. That stayed with me for the whole time, really. It still is something I think about on a very regular basis. So volunteering was very important to me. But some of my first jobs were running volunteer programs. I managed the volunteers at the Literacy Center. It's volunteers are really near and dear to my heart. All my volunteers, you know who you are. So hello.
And what a great example that your grandmother set for you, and what a great why. Kristen, I want to say thank you for the work that you do. Obviously, thank you for joining us. And we certainly appreciate what you do and wish you and the center all the best.
Thank you so much, Sammy. I enjoyed it.
It's our pleasure. That is our show for tonight. I want to thank Kristen Walsh for joining us. And of course, thanks to you for tuning in. Join us again next week. And until then, my name is Sam Chen. On behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues, thank you and good night.